Therefore, we can disable these attack mechanisms in the Amazon cloud. So you have a very high level of security, but still, if you launch a machine, install a web server on that machine, and make it available on the internet, you are exposed to hackers. People can try to penetrate your machine. And you have to take care of the security of these machines. You have to patch the machine, you have to update security fixes, you have to do all the usual things that you do when you maintain a machine. So if you just have a simple website, maybe you don't need that. Maybe hosting is okay for you. But I think that that very simple, basic need of a small website is probably too small for us. Because the smallest instance that we offer is still a pretty powerful machine compared to the hosting plans that you find around. 1.7 gigabytes of RAM for you. The equivalent of a 1.2 gigahertz Xeon processor for you. Of course, there are more powerful machines, but that's a good starting point. You can easily have a web server that serves hundreds of thousands of visitors a day with that machine, which means millions of visitors a month. If you have just your blog with 200 visitors a day, maybe a hosting plan is better. In fact, my personal blog, I don't use a machine. I just use a simple hosting plan, which is a few dollars a month, because it's 300 visitors a day. You don't care. So the biggest difference is hosting is more of a platform. Easier, but less control. And hosting is not API-driven. This is another big difference. All on AWS is API-driven. You can do everything with API calls. When you use the management console, which is a graphical interface on the web, that console uses API calls to perform what you are instructing the console to do. If you say launch an instance with your mouse and your graphical interface, behind the scenes, there will be an API call with your credentials that will launch an instance. Everything is driven by APIs. And the big advantage of APIs, let's see if you can guess it. What's the biggest advantage of APIs in general, not just for AWS? Automation. Let's say you are 95% correct. Not necessarily. You can make very secure API calls, but that's not the biggest difference between an API-driven architecture and an old-style architecture. He's very close. So what?
All the use cases are addressed. What about people want to do they can do it?
Pretty close. I'll give you my point of view. And you're both very close, actually. The point is that APIs make very easy to have two programs, two softwares talk to each other. That's the biggest difference. And in fact, the advantage of APIs in this case is that you have libraries for Java, C++, PHP, Python, etc. You can integrate API calls in your code, which means you can create applications on top of us. You can create many other things that interact with AWS and automate these things. And automation is a very important keyword that explains the advantages in efficiency, cost savings, and other things that the cloud brings. If you can automate, you usually win. Because when you automate, you reduce errors. Of course, if you automate properly, you reduce errors and you reduce costs. So, for example, since APIs are all I need to interact with AWS, I can write a different interface to my machines or to my AWS platform and use this with my existing software that is integrated with a suite of applications that I use internally. So I can use this, for example, to launch instances on AWS whenever I need CPU power and my local capacity is not enough. And I can automate this because I can embed it in the software and make the software do all the calls I need for me. And of course, I can have multiple software talk to each other via APIs. So that's a big advantage. So this was a good question. What else do you think it's not clear in the cloud computing space? There is a question. Oh, actually, there is one in the back.
Yeah.
Okay, you start first and then you do the next one. Yes.
My name
Your
is
name?
Jnanam.
Yanam.
Jnanam.
Jnanam.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we have been already using Amazon EC2 Cloud.
Okay.
And this is something technical of the EC2 Cloud. And
So let me stop you for a second. Do you think this is interesting for the whole audience?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you ask me this later or maybe email me. Let's see what the gentleman in the back has to say. We try to discuss something that is of interest of the whole audience. Okay?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Just pass the microphone in back.
I have some wish list.
Some wish list. Oh, that's good.
It may be a little technical, but I just want to tell. We need some caching service.
Caching. Okay.
And other than Hadoop, we need a parallel processing service framework also.
Okay, wait. Let me sit down and write. Okay, one is caching. Second one, other than Hadoop, you need a parallel
Processing framework or a service.
parallel processing framework. As
And auto scaling based on configurable CloudWatch parameters.
configurable parameters. Okay.
On CloudWatch parameters. Basically, now we can do auto scaling only based on 2-3 parameters. Imagine we want to see the queue size on SQS and accordingly have multiple instances spawned. So
Based on the queue size.
yes, something integrated with CloudWatch.
Okay.
And master replication in RDS.
Okay. So actually, on RDS,
Yes.
the next thing we're gonna release is gonna be multi-read instances.
Okay.
So one master, multiple read, and that's the next thing coming.
Okay.
So, well, master slave, we have it, but you have a single read right now, because the other one is a hot standby when you enable it.
What I'm
This
looking at
is multiple machines that share the database. Well, they have a copies of the database, so you can read from multiple machines to improve performance.
okay.
But master is different.
across regions.
Across regions.
Yes.
Wow. Big wish list. Across regions. I don't think this second part is going to happen anytime soon,
Okay.
but maybe the first part we'll see what we can do.
And when we will have India as a region.
Oh, okay. Getting bolder and bolder. Indian region.
And are you looking at any PaaS in future? PaaS, platform as a service in future.
Oh, pass. Okay.
Because I read an article at GigaOM, something Amazon might be getting into PaaS in future.
Ask Guillaume. No, I'm kidding. So, okay.
But you are the better guys to ask.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a good wish list. Actually, I have an idea. Let me do this before I answer you. Okay. So another poll. I like polls, but since we are talking about wish lists, I have this. There are 2 pages here. The first one is, what do you think are the barriers of adoption for Amazon Web Services, not just for EC2? Barriers of adoption. Support, documentation, ease of use, pricing, security, and managing AWS. You pick one of these, and then the next step would be, I'll show you in a second. First, I want to know from you what you think are the barriers of adoption. So, who thinks is support? Raise your hand. 1. Who thinks is documentation? 1. Who thinks is ease of use? 1, 2, 3, 3. Who thinks is pricing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Who thinks is security? 1, 2, 3, 3. And who thinks is managing AWS? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Now, since... Wait, let me do this. This way. Okay. Most people in India complain about the need of a credit card to be able to use AWS. So, since we're talking about wish lists, what do you think would be what do you think is the best option for you to pay for AWS? Do you like free? Number 5, free. Okay. And that's 38 votes out of 38. Let's imagine for a second that we don't do it for free. Let's imagine. So you are happy with the current method of a credit card, number 1, or you would like a prepay, or you would like a postpay. You know the difference? Prepay, you prepay. Postpay, you pay after. And then wire transfer as a 4th option. So who is happy with the current method of paying? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 people. So who wants prepay? Being able to prepay without a credit card. 1, 2, 3, 4. Who's interested in postpay, which is interesting? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And who's interested in wire transfer? No one. Okay. What other wish list do you have? What would you like to see us doing? So he had 8 wishes, very bold wishes. So anyone else with a single wish? You can't.
Not wish list,
Okay.
but we need some clarity on the roadmap what Amazon is going to do. Because sometimes what happens is like when we come up with solutions, Amazon also come up with a competitive solution.
Okay. So one thing that we can do is if you sign an NDA with us, we are usually able to share things a little bit in advance. And that's, of course, a very limited solution, but it helps in some way. So if you're interested in that, did you, actually, let me go back to the email of Rick and Arjun. If you email one of these 2 guys and ask for an NDA, they will tell you what to do, and then maybe we can share something more with you about that. Wish list.
I'll just show you.
Just one, huh? Just one.
On the usage reporting, right? If I have just a couple of instances, I can kind of figure out how much I use this month. But if I have auto scaling or something enabled on the usage report, I don't get instance-based reporting, saying that how many instances used, how much of computing power, something like that.
Okay, so you want, okay, that's fine. That's very clear. And less bold than other kind of requests. So much more appreciated. I'm kidding. Okay, good. Any other wishes? One wish here.
Open source. Like Rackspace, you would have seen recently open sourcing the technology.
The APIs, you mean?
I'm saying the entire technology.
And I was thinking you were bold. Why?
Why? I'll just relate with the question of transparency. Right? You will have more transparency and belief in the technology that people uses on the cloud space if you open source.
Okay. So let me ask you one question. So I'm actually a big fan of open source. I'm a Linux guy. And my background is Linux. So I understand the concept, and I really like it. But of course, I see that not all companies go on that path. Maybe they do partial things, but saying that open sourcing everything is a pretty bold move. So why do you think? So you already said because of transparency, etc. But a company, of course, works also to have a profit and grow, etc. Do you think that would make sense from a commercial perspective? Just give us your thoughts. Very open.
See, from a commercial standpoint, creating a data center to such a large extent, it's not something very easy for everyone to do, right? So Amazon has got the power, and you have already done it, right? So open sourcing is just going to add more value rather than people taking it and running their own data center. So it's going to make sense for your business too.
Okay, I'll take the feedback. Anyone else? Any other wish? Okay, you can get that.
Training center.
Name.
Training center and certification. Sorry, Inder Kumar.
Inder Kumar. Okay.
Yeah,